call and I was talking to my daughter, my youngest, and then I talked to her mother, and she told me to be expecting a letter, from my victim, my good friend, Annie, and she wrote me a long letter, and she asked me to forgive her, for her feeling the way I feel for taking her nephew's life, and in different things. She turned her life over to the Lord, and some of her church members and her pastor told her before she can move on and become a child of God, she have to forgive me. She's holding a grudge, and, she just felt some way about me because I took her nephew life, even though, I done took him down there several times to visit, when his dad was living, and to take him down there to visit them, and she knew I was a good person. But, I know how a person feel when you take their family member's life, so in different things. So she wrote me that letter, and she just asked me for forgiveness, And then, I sat down and, I thought about it for a couple of days. And then, I sat down and I wrote her a long letter, and different things. And I told her, that I forgive her, but she don't need my forgiveness. I'm asking you for my forgiveness for taking your nephew away from you and taking your family member away from you, and not to be able to see him grow old, to, see him have kids or whatnot, to be, a father, grandfather, whatever he may be in life, as he was a good friend, And then she ended up writing me a letter back, and, and that was it, But that day, that changed my entire life, how I looked at life, And I got on my knees, and I asked God into my heart, and I asked God to change me, to just change me, to take the desires of alcohol, the desires of fast women, desires of the street life, to remove anyone out my life who is not for me. And those 4 or 5 years was the hardest years of my life, because I really just didn't know what happened. And the thing about this here is, what I want to get y'all to see is, life is hard, it's choices. There was a choice that I made to put alcohol in my system, whether he was drunk or not, but to put alcohol in my system, and to put, to get behind the wheel of a car and to risk innocent lives. This is not the first time that I've drunk alcohol and got behind the wheel of a car. I could have killed